Hello, welcome to Agile World. I know I don't normally start out because I've been giving my junior partner here, Sabrina, the opportunity to learn and to grow and to become, a stronger character. Sabrina, how are you doing?
I'll give you that one. I'm going to give you that one today. I'm doing really well, thank you. Touche. Next time I turn around and say, before we start the recording, Carl, I'm going to let you start off because I feel bad. I've been doing it. Never doing that again.
I am
I'm
completely
very well.
trustworthy. Everything is potentially funny. Um, we have a Agile World hot topic today with our guest and friend Padmini. Padmini, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Sabrina. It's definitely starting on a funny note, which I love. Hello, everyone. My name is Padmini Nidamolu, and I'm the co-founder of an organization called Lean and Agile, geared towards women inclusion. And I'm also an enterprise agile coach. That's what I do for a living. Very
Cool.
glad to be here.
You're
Oh,
very, very
thank you.
welcome. Sorry, we're
So,
already cutting across each other verbally. Sabrina, do you want to
we
say
do this.
something?
We'll learn this, all right? We will learn this. We're terrible. We cut across each other all the time. So, Padmini, I'm really excited about this, and Sabrina's excited side's coming out. Can you tell us, and actually, can you tell us your hot topic and start?
Absolutely. So, my hot topic today is inclusion, gender inclusion, which is a business imperative. So, the topic will kind of, be geared towards the concept of how can inclusion be a business imperative? It's not a nice to have, it's a must have. That's what I would love to share about today.
And that's, do you know what? It's a big topic that's around at the moment. So, yeah, please go through.
Yeah, so I've been a huge advocate of gender inclusion, Sabrina, and this is about women inclusion. While I'm well aware and have huge respect for all kinds of inclusion, which are business imperatives. Today, particularly for this session, I'd like to keep it to women inclusion and how it could be a leading factor to success, right? Organizationally and at all levels in the organization, in fact, right? Starting from the team to your program to portfolio to organization. And there's a lot of research and a lot of statistics that we are all aware, right? Several studies out there talk about the statistics across men and women holding positions in the workforce, entry in the workforce, etc. One thing really caught my attention recently, and this was a recent report that came out in early part of 2021, that men end up holding 62% of manager positions or leadership positions, while women hold 38%. So let that
Wow.
sink in, right? 62 and 38. So I know my math is not perfect, but it's around 50% of what men hold. So, as you can imagine, when there are fewer women than men in leadership or even lower leadership, beginning of their career, there are fewer women getting promoted to executive or decision making, key decision making positions across the organization. And no wonder women aren't making it up to the corporate ladder, because you have that initial hiccup or initial impediment for women to enter that first step in that ladder. And again, to compound the issue, many companies are even unaware of the problem. So I think we have an even bigger effort due here, that not having is one aspect of it, but is your organization even aware? Is the
So,
community even aware?
can I ask a question about this? Because, you know, business imperative is like we have a building or we have staff or we can do our work. Um, Women in leadership as a business imperative. What is lost by not having women in leadership? I'm it's
So
to be a business imperative, there must be a special outcome. What is the special outcome?
absolutely. So if you look at women in leadership, right, and why does it matter? I think that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
What is the outcome? So if you look at women in leadership positions, or if you have women at the seat, right, at your decision-making tables, few things that come to my mind, and which have been proven, by the way, this is not something that I'm sharing in isolation, but you get participatory leadership style, right? There is more inclusion in your mindset when you bring, more women. There is increase in measures to promote work-life balance, especially in the remote settings that we are in today, starting with the pandemic and even before, but it's more so now. You get more measures and more checks and balances, because women are at the forefront of leading families, taking care of kids in most cultures, and we are a global culture, growing global culture. And companies are more inclined to introduce family friendly policies, right? And there is more collaborative approach, participative approach, which has those, which involves working with people rather than making people work. There is a slight difference there. And it's also transformational leaders than, typically having a men-dominated space, right? To use the nurturing, the caring, and engaging approach towards, your people, which comes naturally to women, which can be leveraged by the organizations, and also its high emotional intelligence. And I'm generalizing it, but again, this is proven.
No, I completely agree. I worked in a very major blue chip corporation, and my boss was a woman. And she chatted to me about her experience of being employed there at one point, and she said, the reason she got to the level she got to was because her company allowed her to take career breaks to have children, and not just to have them, but to have them for a while, to have them as babies, to become toddlers, and then to come back. And what I noticed is that her management style was non-confrontational, yet she still managed to get everything done.
Yeah.
She didn't need to prove herself. She already had proved herself.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's
Just
fantastic, right? Sorry, go ahead,
Yeah,
Sabrina.
just going to say that, I mean, you just highlighted a really good topic. It's still surprising that in this day and age, it is still happening a lot, and we haven't been able to break through as women as much as we hoped we would have by now. But the having family thing has held a lot of women back, being able to take that time to have their family. And then 9 times out of 10, don't get me wrong, I know a lot of businesses will always welcome you back, but you never get welcome back to get to that next stage. Sometimes it is a struggle, and a lot of women do. I feel that the certain generations are actually holding back on having families to focus on their career. It's kind of flipped, where you used to be quite young when you'd have family. Now actually a lot of women are actually starting a family at an older age, because they want that opportunity to have their career, because in their mindset and because of things that are happening at the moment, they feel that their career's kind of over when they have a child. And that's just as an example. I'm not saying that's for everything.
It really depends on the company and the corporate structure and the value placed around those people. And I know you're specifying women. For me, it's people. One of my members of staff in that same organization, my very first day said, "Karl, I'm pregnant. Isn't it wonderful?" And I'm like going, "Ah, you're brilliant. I'm going to lose you." And she worked until she needed to stop working, and she went away and had a baby. But her work was so good, and the way that these blue chips work, you get appraised every year for your work. I got her a promotion while she was on maternity leave, because her work was so good, so that when she came back at a higher level. And this, you're meant to assess what people do, not the situations of their lives. Because can you imagine downgrading someone suffering a serious illness? That would be horrific. The fact that someone is bringing life into the world is neither well, for a business person, it's neither a negative or a positive. It's simply something that's happening to that person. That person and their capabilities that they bring to the organization have not changed. They're simply in a different context.
That is very true. And it's fantastic what you just said in terms of this particular case, this woman coming back to a higher role, that's the ideal situation an organization should be. As you rightly said, it's about the people, it's about the talent, it's about the expertise and experience, not so much about the situation in your life, because
Yeah.
life happens, right? One more thing in that context, Karl, that I've mentioned and I also observed is I think diversity has become a checkbox for most organizations, right? All of us want to be diverse on paper, and I think that's sometimes nice to have, and it's probably a cosmetic checkbox that most organizations have. But I'd really like to draw attention, and I do this in many of my conversations and talks, that we have the challenge at hand, which organizations must address, which is diversity is a must have on the organizational OKRs right now, but the inclusion is not,
Yeah.
right? Every organization, no matter what you see, where you see, diversity is an OKR in some capacity. But make no mistake, right? Diversity is not inclusion. Diversity can be just a checkbox for most organizations, but inclusion must happen at every layer, right from involving the women on the teams and decision makings to recruiting women leaders. That's inclusion. How inclusive you are when you're making those critical decisions, when you're making those strategic conversations. Do you have an inclusion led table? I think that's what is so important. And also, I think the organizations must think through what it takes to develop women leaders, strategists, and drivers at all levels, because it doesn't happen like that, right?
Mm.
And unless this is at the front and center, this objective is at the front and center, career development for women can be possible, right? It takes a challenge, and it's going to be very challenging for women to kind of really go across that broken rung. I don't know if you heard about the broken rung, but it is really that broken step in the ladder, the first step of that ladder being broken. Because if that's broken, guess what? It's going to be extremely challenging for women to cross every other step in that ladder. So that's called the broken rung. And there's got to be some kind of a framework in every organization to
Yeah.
get through that path for the
Yeah.
women in the organization.
And if you don't, you lose the insight and the networking and the knowledge and the potential. I mean, this is the bit that I don't really understand about large organizations, is they see people below a certain level as less valuable, but they are the producers of value who, once they add that to strategy, can actually rocket the organization into a new level because they've been closer to the work. And I just I don't understand why people would waste that opportunity.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think women will always struggle to climb to the top of the corporate ladder, or even that, first few steps in the corporate ladder, as long as these first rungs are broken. Because as you rightly said, they're often seen as maybe, contributors at that level. But as you said, they are, the bridge between what is and what can happen. And I think we've all heard about the glass ceiling. That's probably the most popular word, that invisible barrier keeping women from making it into the top management positions. But it'll be surprising, statistic to see the broken rung starts much, much earlier. And I think as an organization, if you identify and kind of address that sooner, you have more leaders and more diverse leaders with multicultural backgrounds, with thought diversity and thought leadership diversity. It's for the benefit of the organization. The organization is a direct beneficiary of that, right? So that's often very.
I'd be very interested through your research. Is there, so I've been very blessed that I've worked with many female leaders in my career. I've had an opportunity myself to be a leader as well. And out of your research, is there particular countries where you feel that they have not yet embraced this situation. They've not yet. You will find a lower percentage of female leaders than other places. Has that ever come up? Has there been some research around that?
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic question, and I'd be glad to touch on that. I think from an overarching perspective, every country, every organization has this challenge in some capacity, right? I can't see one single country or geographic region which is completely solved for it. I think it exists in different capacities. But you're right, there are some countries, especially I would say patriarchal countries, right? And male dominated societies, which kind of have this I would say notion that men can lead better than women. And I'm originally from India. I was born and brought up in India. India is a patriarchal society. There are pockets in Indian culture where it is matriarchal, but it is predominantly male dominated society. And women are seen as brash and bullying and dominating if you raise your voice or if you express leadership qualities at a young age, right? It is just how the society is conditioned and built. And it's changing for good, and I'm happy about it. But if you really look at organizations, they're heavily impacted and influenced by that part of the society and the culture. And you will see probably even lesser number of women leaders in those countries than you would probably see in some parts of Europe or Australia or Americas, right? So yes, that definitely has that influence on organization, because at the end of the day, as Karl said, it's people, who are working in organizations, who are leading in organizations. So unless you break that societal norms of the disparity between the genders or even other thought leaderships, you will continue to see this.
And why do you feel? Why do not you feel actually? Sorry, that's wrong because I agree with you. Why do you think these corporations just don't allow? I know obviously in certain communities, certain aspects, they don't believe a woman can do it. But is there any other reasons why they haven't yet taken that leap? Because as you've mentioned, and I agree with you, there's a lot of very large, big branded companies, well-known companies now, where you regularly will see a female leader. And you would think, and a lot of companies normally look up to these large brands, I won't say any brands, and go, I like what they're doing. That's absolutely amazing. Do you think there's a reason why they don't take note of that and maybe change their ways? Or is it still back to generation upon generation of just not believing in it?
I think, they not taking a note, not being aware of the, non-inclusive environments is one aspect of it. The other aspect, Sabrina, is really how women view themselves. And we do a lot of work on this in Lean and Agile, right? These are the barriers that women build for themselves. And we call them self barriers, right? There are organizational barriers, there are external barriers, little under our control. But when you really look at and speak with women, they have this imposter syndrome and they want to be perfect. And there is a study on this before they can apply for a job, versus a man who can probably, check the boxes 6 out of 10, and he's out there, right, in front of the interview panel, and he thinks he can do it. And also, I think the women probably have these cultural backgrounds, societal backgrounds, family backgrounds, which are huge influences on the way they view themselves, right? Their confidence is built or broken based on several other factors. So we do a lot of work in breaking down those self-made barriers for women, because unless you put yourself out there and demand your seat at the table, it's hard for most organizations, to recognize that there is a woman applicant. And we do speak with organizational leaders, conference organizers, and we go, hey, why do you have 9 out of 10 speakers as men? And you'd be surprised at their response. The response is, We don't have women applicants. There are not enough women speakers out there, right? And it's partially true because the women speakers are not out there, saying we are available, right? It is both ways. The organizations and conference organizers probably need to be intentional about creating the space for them, saying 50% of our spots are for women. And you'll be surprised at how many women really come forward, because otherwise they could be intimidated by the already set up lineup of men who are experienced and
So
who have been.
so some of that, so we're kind of hitting into the nurture and nature question. The fallacy is nature, because it's not natural for women to be quiet and to be in the to not engage and to not have leadership roles. That it's not natural. That's not, that whole piece is complete nonsense. But nurture has had a huge impact upon women. I look at my family. I have two older sisters. My father said to them, "You can be anything you want to be," so they did. And I think there's a huge capacity for parents here to impact the ability of their children to rise above. I remember hearing from, I think it was Condoleezza Rice's biography, where there were riots going on, race riots going on, and she wanted to join in, and her father told her, "No, get on with it, learning how to play the piano. You can, when you're older and you have a better understanding of things, you can engage in politics," which she did. Because she ended up as the defense secretary for the United States of America. So I just think there's a whole piece here about nurture, but I think that nurturing is something that's missing in companies. That nurtured behavior around people to facilitate them to get beyond where they are at the moment. It's as you say, you need to be quite aggressive to actually get anywhere, and that's actually wrong, because I find the thoughtful people are the ones that have the most impact, rather than the brash. So
Yeah, you bring up a fantastic point, Carl. I think nurturing should happen in the organizations, absolutely, but also should happen at homes. And it starts early.
yeah,
It's really early. And as you said, right, that statement from the parent, it's a simple statement, but a very profound statement, which is you can be what you want to be. And you have all the support in me as a parent.
yeah,
That that instills so much confidence in a girl as she grows up, as she identifies, her abilities, and as she explores other things in the world. It matters a lot. And so is the situation with the organization. If the organization says, we have the platform and the framework for you to grow, right? You just tell us what you want to do and tell us how you can be leveraged, and we will create the space for you to grow into. There will be so many more women leaders, right? I think we have seen women like Malala Yousafzai earning a Nobel Peace Prize at the age of, I don't know, I think she was younger than 20, only because her dad told her that, you can be what you want to be,
yeah,
right? Raise your voice. And coming from a very conventional society that she belonged to, she raised her voice against terrorism. And that is why she is where she is. So it starts very early. And I love the comparison that you've done, right? At home and in the organizations, nurturing is a very, very critical aspect. And I think women can use it, men can use it, anybody can use it. But I think it's the barriers that women build for themselves that
yes,
need a little bit more push than the others. That's all it is.
yeah.
I like.
Sorry, I'm doing it again. I
No,
just got to
go on.
say that I often say to Sabrina, please don't put yourself down. There's plenty of people who will queue up to do that for you. We don't need, it's one of those things in life, is that there are so many negative people, and part of it is they're afraid of you because you're doing things that they aren't. You just need to not think about what you're doing, but do what you are, and you'll be fine.
Yes.
Well, that links into what I was just about to say when you mentioned about imposter syndrome. And I think this is something that every woman can relate to, is we do judge ourselves very hard. We are very hard. We give ourselves a lot of hard judgment, but also the world that we live in at the moment is quite a hard place sometimes to live in, with the likes of Instagram, filters, you know, there's that judgment, and that can come into your career as well. We judge ourselves as hard as possibly a lot of other people do judge us as well. And I feel that sometimes we need to have a little bit more confidence. I was one of those lucky daughters that my father said the same thing to me. First thing my father said to me was, I will bring you up that you should be able to do anything you want and be able to do everything that you can do. You know, he taught me how to build a wall, service a car, as well as I was going to ballet classes and doing karate, taught me how to defend myself. But he always said that whoever I wanted to be, I could be. Now, he had his own business, which I could have taken over. But he said, I'm not going to ask you to do that. You do what you want to be. And I've always had that sport. So everything that you just said, it's understandable when you explain it in that way.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. So I think again, right, we have to be our own champions, men or women, right? I think at the end of the day, you're your own champion. You know your limitations the best. So how can you build a plan, or how can you build a framework for yourself that you can thrive? And you can put out yourself out there when there is an opportunity, there is an offer, there is an improvement opportunity. And in fact, in Lean and Agile, we have built something called a personal board of directors, right? A framework in which every woman can identify her own personal board of directors, because we need those champions, we need those support structures to be in place. And we have 5 of those: a coach, a mentor, a counselor, a reviewer, and a subject matter expert that you can, lean in on. And the way you lean in on these roles is you go out there into your community and intentionally recruit them. And you'll be surprised when you ask somebody, if I can go to, let's say, Karl, and say, Karl, can you be my mentor for this season? I need help with how to set up something like an Agile World. You'll be surprised at how many times you get a yes as an answer as opposed to no. But we assume that people are busy, they will not give us a time. Who cares for mentoring me? I think as women, we need to be more forthcoming with our requests. Put the request out there, and you get 99% of the times it's a yes, both for men and women. So recruit those roles in your life. Ask somebody that, can you be my mentor? Can you be my subject matter expert? Hey, I'm starting a new job. I might need to come and bounce off some ideas or understand certain concepts from you. Is it okay for me to come and request for 10 minutes of your time in 2 weeks? Right? So recruit those roles of, a coach, mentor, counselor intentionally. And now you have a scaffolding, a support structure in place. Should you need them, you might not need them, but should you need them, you have them there. So we work on these roles at Lean and Agile, and mentor and coach the women, to kind of be out there and be your own cheerleader. What can be greater than that?
I'm lucky. I've got Karl. I think I know you're there, aren't you?
It's
I'm
it's
very
it's
blessed that you
it's
have
um
Karl.
it's dual. We both learn from each other,
Yeah.
and we're both in the same subject area, which is great. And obviously, she looks up to me for my massive age.
He is a lot older, I'm sorry.
So Padmini, what do you want to do with this now? Do you want to engage with the wider community? Do you want to set up do you want to share your framework? What do you want to do next?
So this is an ongoing process, right? There is no milestone that I desire to meet. This is going to be an iterative process. But the desire, Karl, is to engage the Agile community as wide as we can reach out. This is a voluntary organization, and all of us are in this, right? The intent is a shared intent. Doesn't matter who's doing what in what capacity, but the target is how can we engage more women in our community, in our organizations? How can we develop more women leaders? And how can we be a truly inclusive community? Because once you become a truly inclusive community, that permeates itself to the organizations. Because at the end of the day, to your point, Karl, it's people.
Yeah.
We are in communities, we are in organizations, we are in families, we are everywhere. So I think that culture of being inclusive has to be aggressively promoted. And everything that I just said, we have spirals in Lean and Agile where, we bring women together to have a framework called offer seek. And the intent is you offer to that community of 20 or 25 people, women coming together on a cadence, and you seek from the same community. But together, you become much stronger over a period of time. So we do spirals, we do personal board of directors, we do conferences and whatnot. But the intent is to build an inclusive community. And I think all of us have a part to play in it. All of us have an accountability and responsibility to play in it. And that's the call to action here. That's really the
Have
next
you
step.
considered creating a position paper that could be adopted into governance by companies?
We have that in the thought process, but we have not really executed on that. And again, more people signing up to kind of support that would be fantastic.
I'm just thinking because you can get all of the workers to agree that it's the right thing to do, but if the employers don't adopt it, then it will be a movement beneath the surface, and it will never get the recognition that needs to be in place within HR activities and also in business strategy to actually change how organizations operate. So I just wondered, maybe it's a project that making something like that available, or a manifesto or a statement of terms that could be adopted into governance as it become a policy in corporations. I think that would help people, because remember, everyone's quite institutionalized that works on a permanent basis for a company, and they find it very difficult to think of free thinking engagements and behaviors. So just an idea.
No, that's a fantastic idea. And I think the much needed thought. And I think, we probably as a community should be engaged in drafting this. It's not just one or two people. I think we have to come together. And I also know that Access Agile is a great platform that I'm engaged with, you're all engaged with. And I've started the conversations with the festival because we need the reach. We need the wider network to be engaged in drafting something like this and co-create it, right? It's not a work of people. But it goes back to what I was saying, Karl, which is we can have anything and everything fancy written on paper, right?
Yeah.
Until you're intentional about inclusion.
Yeah.
You could have 50% women as your workforce. You've checked the box, but are you engaging them, right, in delivering your product and really making those decisions in strategy making, in your OKRs? That's the crux of it. And I think for that, and you need the coaches, and that's why agile coaches are brought in, because we're not coaching just them on frameworks or story points, but we are coaching them on being inclusive, because now you have a wider array of options when you bring more inclusion. But a fantastic thought. I think that's a takeaway that I think the three of us should take it forward along with the community here.
That'd be great.
Well, thank you ever so much, Padmini. This has been absolutely amazing, and we can't wait to have you back on the show and maybe do something new. Thank you very much for your time.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
It's been a
everybody.
pleasure. Thank you so much.
Bye.